What's going on, everyone? It's Wednesday, 11 o'clock Eastern here in New York. And this is not a green screen. This is 42 West 18th Street, Adorama. You guys know you're welcome here. Nigel knows he's welcome here. He's OG Adorama family. We'll go into that in a bit. I got to go through some stuff first, but you know, you're welcome in these chairs as much as you're in that chat room. So make sure you're stopping by at some point. But before we get going, you know what I got to do, guys. I got to do some house cleaning. First, I want to thank Pro Photo for sponsoring this. We're both Pro Photo fans.
Absolutely.
You guys see a lot of live demos out of here using Pro Photo. It's the echelon of lighting, right? And now they're in constant light with the L600C, the Pro panel, so much stuff going on. Make sure you check out the link down below for the full lineup. We just used Pro D3s in here yesterday with Abscisse. I'm using B30s on Tuesday. Daniel will be in here. It's nonstop. You know Pro Photo. Check out the line down below. I also want to say a quick thank you to Tenba because they were like, this is awesome. We want to be a part of it because Tenba was started by a photographer right here in the 70s in New York. So they made custom coffee creator bags and you get one, my friend.
Look at that. Thank you.
Cool? Like
Cool.
they're a super nice bag, but also they have a full lineup, rollers, everything. I love their little tech cases with the window on the front. Saves my life all the time. I say this every episode. Check out the full line below. Tenba. Oh wow, it's really weird when the air conditioning shuts off. It's like when the washing machine shuts off, your brain gets a little weird. Boom, just me. Okay. And then lastly, I want to say a quick thank you to Gotham Roasters, who is one block up on 19th Street. If you're going to come to Adorama, go over there, say what's up, tell them we sent you, and then grab a seat here. Cheers, bro.
Cheers.
What'd you get?
English breakfast tea, of course.
Of course.
Darling.
Cool. Who is Nigel Barker? Why am I even saying that? You guys know who Nigel Barker is. I mean, probably known for the 17 seasons of America's Next Top Model, but really, you're a photographer and you've been a creative director and you've been all over the place. You've been parts of charities, Make-A-Wish Foundation. You've helped out pediatric medicine. I mean, your list is so long, it's insane because you never stop moving. But what stays constant is you're always a photographer.
Yeah, I mean, I think all those things you mentioned, I use photography and cinematography to help illustrate whatever the issue might be. And I think, the one thing I've always found is that there's so many things that interest me. I mean, we're all creatives, right? So if you're a creative, how can you apply your creative talent to do almost anything? And that way, you sort of, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
So even if it's, for example, just if you look at the genres of photography, you've got, music, architecture, fashion photography, wedding photography, presidential photography, CSI photography. In other words, you can get into crime. You can get into aerial photography. You can be underwater with sharks. There's so many different things and areas, and therefore, if you think of an issue or a charity, for example, a charity, those are organizations that have a story to tell, and it's very hard for them to tell that story without visual imagery, right? So that's where we step in, and we're like, as a photographer, there's so much you can give back using your what you're good at, which for me is photography.
Yeah, I think if people forget that visuals are the most universal communication. Unless you're blind, it doesn't matter what language you speak, you get an impact, you connect with it, you have a feeling about it, you get something from it. It's our job to curate what's in that frame to get that point across, and a brain will go to you and figure all that out. One thing I remember you said a million years ago, I don't even remember you said this, but
not quite a million years, but
1 million, absolutely. Dinosaurs are here. You had this one, I don't call it a quote, but you said, I met this woman, I followed her all around the world, and you built this portfolio just chasing, and then you ended up marrying her, right? But
I was going to say our offspring is in the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it. But I just thought that was so cool because I think people forget when you shoot so commercially that you have this organic spine to it. And no matter how much it gets to being about selling a product or marketing, whatever, in the core, in the soul of what you did, it came from you wanted to shoot and you wanted to tell stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think the more inspired you can be, the easier this job is, right? And I think certain people look for inspiration and that's their one struggle. I get people all the time telling me like, how do I get into this thing? What's exciting about it? For me, I'm excited and inspired just simply by the morning. I wake up and I'm like,
must be nice.
The sun has come up, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm excited by that concept because it's a new day, which means a new chapter, which means new possibilities, means anything can happen. And I think that for me is the same thing. It's not just a new day, but even if it seems the same, there's always something slightly different.
Yeah,
Something that's not quite the same. And, you know, as a photographer, and someone moves in front of you, every slight shift is a slightly different moment, a slightly different image, a slightly different thing that's happening. And that's where, you know, what we do is stop time in its tracks. So you have to be hyper aware and you have to be hyper in the moment. And that's really challenging, but really exciting at the same time. So that's what I get off on. I mean, it's as simple as that, really, you know, and I'm like, what's the story? How can I inspire that person? And then how can I use the equipment I have and with the knowledge of how to use it to articulate the story that I'm trying to tell, I'm not necessarily, see, the way I do things, I don't look to just say, capture what's in front of me, however it happens. As a fashion photographer, I'm more trying to generate a situation and create a moment.
Curate.
Yeah, so that it happens, because I don't have the luxury of being like, I can sit here in front of this foxhole and wait for the fox to come out or whatever, and maybe it's tomorrow. You know, I'm there for a job normally that's going to last a few hours, maybe a day, and I've got to get the shot.
Yeah, I think though you must have drawn, just from like workflow perspective, forget about inspiration, forget all that stuff, from being a model and watching how others had to work around you, you had to have drawn some sort of process of just workflow to be able to be efficient and really get the job done in that regard, right? I feel like all those years of modeling, you had to have drawn, even subconsciously. It's like having a mood board around you, right?
Yeah, look, I was a model in the late 80s, so long time ago, right? But I've stopped modeling mid-90s. But during that time, I probably worked with 300-400 photographers around the world.
Yeah.
Right. And I used to work in New York, in Milan, and Paris, and London, and you know, it was a very different time in the industry. There weren't that many models. There was no social media. There was no internet, for goodness sakes. Forget about you know, social media. There was no email. I mean, you know, we were calling people, and if someone had a fax machine, then you were communicating, right? And
you have to live in the moment.
No, I mean, seriously, this is like really the you know, back in the day type of stuff. But what I learned was not just, obviously, the photographers I was working with, like today, like, where is the light? Then how do I look in the picture? And so if I put a light here, I put a light there, and I would even go and do as much as go over and look at the actual packs and see where the power is at. I would take a mental note if I wouldn't actually write it down, and then I would get the picture back in the magazine and be like, okay, that's what that looks like with this particular setup.
Right.
And I started to train myself. And then I would do things like look in the mirror and see a light behind me and go, okay, that's giving me this backlight that looks a bit like this. That light is over there at that angle. And it, you know, and it's either got a lampshade around it or it doesn't. And my original photography that I used to shoot with, I used to use bare light bulbs, and I'd even use certain lampshades over them because of the way the light came around them. It was, I mean, that's literally how I taught myself to light.
I mean, all modifiers that you buy today started out like that. Cool. A softbox started out as an actual box with a bed sheet on it, and they made it a product, right?
By the way, bed sheets, shooting through bed sheets is awesome.
Awesome. You know, I remember stealing bed sheets out of every motel in my BMX days. Don't overlook that. But also, you have to just understand what properties of light you're looking for, and then what will bring it there. That's all. You know what I mean? But I think when you were on those sets, there are a lot of people, look, I was never a model, right? But I killed myself to become an assistant to get on those sets, to be welcome on those sets.
You know, it could still happen.
Oh, I don't know, man.
You know, come on. Have you seen the bone structure?
I'm broken.
I'm seeing it right now. No, you know,
I'm broken.
The whole look.
I'm well past expired. But you had the privilege of being on so many sets with so many different point of views.
Sure.
Because there's never two sets that are the same, and they're all going for something different. I mean, now we're watching BTS in real time. You flip through your phone, you will see 50 different sets if you follow them.
Oh,
you lived on those sets for years. Plus, the stuff you were creating got to live for like a month, 2 months, 3 months. Now we're over it by lunch.
Oh, yeah, no, that's very tough. I mean, I think not just was it the way they put their lights up and all that kind of thing. For me, what was really the most interesting was how they communicated with the model, but with not just that, but with the hair, the makeup, the styling, you know, how they produced the set, how they controlled the set. Yeah, and some people were quiet, silent photographers it was all about the lighting. Other people were very much engaged, and the lighting was sort of almost secondary. Lighting would come in and go out. Clouds would come. They wouldn't really change much. And they were trying to capture that moment. And I think it depends on whether you are someone who is sort of all about the lighting, or you are someone who, you know, is much more about, you know, is more of a portrait photographer who shoots fashion when you're in my genre. You know, that being said, you know, I've gone on to do all types of photography, but I always try and apply what I'm into as far as like fashion. So whether I've gone onto the, into the Arctic and shot seals on the ice, during the sort of seal hunt, which is a really random and sort of scary time to be, on the ice shooting animals, I still brought all my strobes, all the pro photo gear out onto the ice. People told me that's lunatic. It's not going to work. The batteries are going to die. Believe me, we had the batteries strapped to our bodies with cables. We did things that had never really been done before. And it worked out, but we also got photographs that had never really been taken before because no one had ever bothered to take a beauty dish with a grid and a pack onto the Arctic to shoot a seal.
Also, seals lay like pinup girls. I mean, they totally are like, look at this belly. They're like, oh, look at my glory.
I'm not going to touch that. We started with shooting through bed sheets, and then we're now going on to pinup girls that are actually seals.
Listen, I mean,
hey,
I don't think you know what I shoot, man. I shoot zombies and creatures for a living. So
coffee and creators. Yeah, no, clearly.
No, but I think learning the workflow is kind of the hardest part. One of the things that I find a lot of photographers struggle with, especially once they start getting technical knowledge, is putting their own ego in the photograph. They're more about pulling off a technique than worrying about what they're actually shooting. And I think probably what you witnessed was people getting past that point, going like, I'm photographing Nigel. Who's Nigel? How can I get the most out of Nigel? Now you take that and go, I'm going to work with people who trust me, because I think you probably get a lot more trust from models having been on their side of the lens also, right? Like they probably connected to you a little bit.
It's a combination of things. I mean, one of the things, and there's no right or wrong, guys. I mean, I would say that is that, it's really about what you are trying to achieve as a creative. So in other words, your subject doesn't have to be relaxed in front of you, right? So there's this concept of, like, how do you make them feel at ease? It's like, well, actually, I don't need to. Sometimes it's great if they're at ease because, they're more relaxed. They're perhaps going to be more giving of themselves. But if someone is completely nervous and terrified, as long as it's real and authentic, you will get an image that will be engaging because it will be believable. What you don't want is someone kind of just sort of nonchalantly not there. And if that is the case, you better be good at lighting, because you've got to create some kind of distraction where people look at the picture and go, wow, I love the lighting. I love the clothes. I love the location. I love the hair. But what's it saying? And the most powerful shots are always the ones that say something. So if you really want to sell something, you have to sell it by saying it, right? Through the imagery. And that goes for anything. That goes even for, when you're talking about a charitable photograph or something, you want it to be that people can see the mission, see the cause, want to advocate, want to donate, want to volunteer because they saw the picture. And without you telling them anything, they decided they were going to react to what they saw and do something about it. And that means either buy it or donate to it or whatever. So that's kind of like where we come from. And you use whatever tricks you need to make that happen.
Yeah, I think before anything else, going into what you just said, you have to have intent. You have to, why am I shooting it? What am I shooting? What am I going for? And then go for it. And then when you get to the actual point of shot, if something isn't as expected, go with it, lean with it. Stop fighting the shot, which I think a lot of people do. Look at Avedon. Avedon, one of the most famous photos of Marilyn Monroe ever is his shot where she doesn't look comfortable. She looks like she's tired. She's not glamorous, but people connected that because finally, oh, she's kind of like us. You know what I mean?
Well, he was probably the best at doing that.
The best.
I'm a huge fan of Avedon. One of my favorite stories of his is the shot of the English royal family, the Windsors, who kind of look distraught, slightly crying and what have you. And for those of you who don't know, in a very quickly, that basically he was late to the photo shoot. They were there early, sitting down in front of the camera. They'd been poised in front of it. Normally they would show up after he was, completely ready, step on set, have their photograph taken very formally and leave. In this instance, he was late. They really wasn't showing up. And eventually they were like, the Duke was like, what is earth is going on? We're going to leave. He all of a sudden appears out of nowhere looking distressed and what have you. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry I'm late. That never happens to me. On my way to the portrait session, I actually, hit a dog. And, and then people are like, wow, you hit a dog. He's like, yes, it was very unfortunate. I think it was a corgi dog. And she's like, oh my God. And then, it turns out that the corgi dog apparently was the dog of, not the dog, but a dog that the Duchess used to breed. And so it was a sort of, in a way, this sort of, and maybe the story is myth, but the concept behind it is that, he would use things like that to provoke reactions out of people, which would be visceral. They would be real. Imagine you see a model and I'm going to say, can you smile? Can you look sad? Can you be like, it's very hard to be really act a role, but to actually give someone the feeling to actually be that. So, you know, a lot of those great photographs he shot, you know, the American West, for example.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
he would actually take the backdrop and drop it in the field wherever they were working. So the farm workers he was photographing, they looked like they were shot in a studio, but what they were looking at was not a inside of a studio, which would have been, you know, difficult for them because they would have felt like a fish out of water. Instead, they were looking at the mountains, at the field, at what they always saw every day, other than the camera. And that made them feel really at ease. And he was able to, you know, create these very, you know, studio looking photographs of people that would normally be like stepping from foot to foot going, when's this going to be over? Instead, looking at the camera like, nothing.
It was also natural light, minimal gear. So they're
Amazing.
talking to him. They're on a white piece of paper, and they're like, "That was it."
Yeah.
Like I love that. I talk about Avedon forever. I love Avedon. I'm reading a biography this thick of him. Having said that, can we talk about that book you're working on, or is that like a?
Yeah, no. I mean,
okay, cool.
We got all kinds of things going on. I mean, you know, I'm working on a new book. This is be my third book. You know, we did Beauty Equation was the first one, Models of Influence, which luckily enough became a New York Times bestseller, and that's what's got this book going, right? So, you know, this is hopefully going to be called Photographers of Influence, you know, and it's essentially a story of the best fashion photos of all time and why they inspired people to do different things in the industry, right? And I think that, you know, there are certain photographers and certain photos that changed the way people,
Absolutely,
you know, thought what was possible and helped them to dream about what's next and inspired an entire generation of photographers. I mean, you know, it's very hard to do something new on America's Next Top Model. We haven't even touched that, but on America's Next Top
I
Model,
feel like everyone talks to you about that. That's
no,
why
of
I'm
course,
trying to like.
and no, and it's great. But and the reality, what I was going to say is on Top Model, so many of the shoots that we did, where people would say, "Oh, that's so extreme. That's so over the top. When would that ever happen? Why would you ever do that?" And we're like, well, actually, every shoot we ever did was taken from the sort of archives of the most extreme but real photo shoots that happened. And yeah, it doesn't happen every day in the fashion industry, but we're making a TV show. So we're going to put together the most extreme moments, but they all actually happen. So whether you've got someone floating in a bubble over the Seine, you know, yeah, that seems ridiculous and extreme, but that actually happened in French Vogue in the, you know, the 1950s.
Well, you guys never like referenced that on that show. Like it's like, it was more spectacle and like a little more civilian, but like I wish you spent like 2 minutes of like, this is in reference to this thing this shot that actually happened.
Sometimes we would sometimes, yeah, we would, but it was also not as easy as always to do that because you'd have to get the rights of the photographer to do that, to show their picture and stuff like that. And when you're, you know, working a commercial television show, they won't give you those rights for those photos to show them. You could mention it and talk about it, and I would talk about it to the models and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I know.
So you guys are in this chat. I'm not ignoring you. I swear. This guy clearly media trained, talking forever. Oh, unbelievable. But Marguerite is asking, what is your favorite smaller camera to always have on you?
How small is this for you? I got, you know, I've got big hands, guys.
That toy,
you know, this little Leica, this little SL3 of mine. I like to carry a big DSLR around. I mean, is the reality. This is a camera that I've been working with for years, you know, but you know, I've had all kinds of cameras over the years. But one of my favorite little point and shoots I used to work with, which I can just pop in my pocket, was a Yashica.
Yeah.
You know, great little film camera, super cheap, really, not anymore so much, but they used to be really cheap. You know, you could pretty much pick one up for less than $100 back in the day, you know, but they were very, very easy. And, you know, the on-camera strobe, it created a nice effect, and it had a little viewfinder that you could look down at too. So you could be on the train, on the subway, and just look straight down if you had an interesting, and no one would know you were taking the picture. So you could, you know, create kind of cool things, which is very unusual for, and I also have a really small little spy camera called a Minox.
Yeah, I have a few of
you know, which are really wonderful as well, because they are tiny. They're like the size of a, you know, almost like a matchbox. And, you know, so if you're in a suit.
And they go in and out to themselves.
And and you can pop them directly in your pocket, and they are literally spy cameras. So there are lots of fun little cameras. I'm a photographer, so I got like the most ridiculous collection. But when it comes to optics, you know, the Leica is probably, for me at least, you know, got some of the best optics in the world.
I used to sit in a black room and take 35mm rolls of film and run them through splicers to get 3 rolls for my Minox, because that's how you had to make the film, because you couldn't get it. Man, Minoxes were fun, but though you did have full settings, you had shutter speed and everything on them.
Absolutely.
So it's a very grainy image, very, very grainy. It's a very tiny piece.
Yeah, but grain is one of those things where we kind of reacted so aggressively against it with digital, and it was like, and now people add grain heavily to their film.
They don't want sanitized.
They don't want it because it looks, it looks so sterile. You see far too much. Everyone's like, "Will I see this? Will I see that?" And I'm like, "Well, no, not by the time I'm done with it." But
it's like, let's use this $5,000 lens, but put this mist filter on there so that I look like I'm.
That's where shooting through the bed sheets helps.
Yeah. Tony's asking, thank you for being here. What are all the crazy photo shoots idea you did on your show? What was your favorite concept?
So I think one of the most extreme photo shoots I ever did, and what I loved, was in Barcelona. So I had the opportunity to shoot, in the big arena where the bullfights happen in Barcelona. They don't actually do bullfights anymore.
The cover of your book, wasn't one of your books a bullfight thing?
It wasn't a cover of my book, but it's in one of my books. Okay. Yeah, and it's one of my more kind of iconic pictures that I've shot that's been around. But essentially, it was a terrifying shoot to do because we had a real bull that was in bullfights, essentially, that was being released into the stadium. I was in there with my photo assistant, and I had 3 matadors around me, and their job was to make sure that I didn't get squashed. My job was to make sure that I caught the picture of the bull charging me down, right? And the problem is that they were protective over me. So when they would release the bull, once it got to, like, I don't know, 40 feet away, they were like, they charged, they jumped in front to get it away. I ran with my camera gear behind this huge wooden wall that's been there for like 700 years. The bull would eventually go bam into the wall. The whole wall would shudder, dust would come down, heart would be beating, and you would be like, did I get the shot? And I thought and they were like, look, the bull's getting tired, because I did this a few times, and they're like, you've got one more go. And I thought to myself, I look at the pictures and I'm like, yeah, it's sort of there, but I wanted the bull to be like in your face, like, like as you would, like really going for it. And I'm like, if I was just a little bit longer there, maybe I could get it. And, as one, you get sort of Dutch courage after you've been there for a while, and so they were like, they're counting me down, like 3, 2, okay, get up. And I didn't. I carried on shooting, and they went, get up. And I just then was like, my assistant grabbed my camera, took it, and ran. And I was just left there. He didn't save me. He saved the camera and ran. So clearly, a photographer at heart. Meanwhile, I jumped up, realized the bull was upon me. And I turned my body. The bull went right past me. Its horns actually whipped the back of me, ripped my shirt, sliced my back, blood drew. Bull went, and everyone it was jumping in the ring trying to get the bull. Finally, they got the bull. I felt like I had betrayed the matadors who they'd given me their trust to be in there, and they all got around me, serious face, stoic, I was like, oh God, guys, I'm really sorry. I looked, I got the shot. And they were like, Mr. Barker, you have the heart of a bull. and they're like, you're one of us. So it was actually kind of funny because I thought they were going to be really upset, but actually, sometimes you've got to take it just that little bit further to get the shot. Now, don't be stupid, don't fall off a cliff, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
And you tipped that assistant nicely, right?
I fired him actually, but
wow,
hey, no,
come on, man.
I didn't actually. He worked for me for a very long time.
Good.
Marcus Brooks.
I remember I was doing a shoot in the street when I was shooting BMX days, and I got hit by a car. And the camera goes flying, and I go to grab the camera, and the guy that hired me was like, never asked if I was okay, didn't ask if I broke anything, I'm covered in I'm bleeding. He goes, was there film in that camera? That's what it was like. That's what it's like shooting. Is like they only care about what's going on with that camera. You're secondary all the time.
Yeah.
So your assistant knew what was up.
Yeah, clearly. No, absolutely.
The photo's immortal, man.
I know, absolutely. It's become one of the best photos and a great story to go with it. So,
and Andre is asking, how do you manage to deal with projects that don't meet your expectations?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's the question of expectations is really not really something I deal with in as much as I'm in charge of expectations. It's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So I'm in a privileged position because I don't really shoot what other people want me to shoot. I shoot what I want to shoot, which is an unusual position to be in. But when people come to me for a job,
it's a lot of pressure, though.
It's a lot of pressure, but I don't get given say mood boards and say, can you shoot this? That's not how it happens with me.
They're going to you for
They look at what I've done or what I would like, or they come to me and say, we want to do something in this world. And then I give them what I'm going to do. So the expectation is built by myself. Where the issue lies is if they can't afford to do it, right? So then we have to kind of deal with that. So it's still real but the expectation lies on me, but I enjoy that pressure for what I want to do. And if I feel like I've captured the moment, I know, you know that moment, when the hair on the back of your neck stands up, you feel that moment, you're in it, you're there, you've got the shot. It could be the shot number 1, it could be shot number 100, but as someone who started with film, you shoot in a rhythm of whether it's 10 shots, 20 shots, 35 shots, whatever, you don't overshoot it. You kind of feel it, you know it. You're unlikely to shoot more than 10 rolls because on any advertising gig, you were never going to be given more than 10 rolls of film, so you just know when you got it. You're not going to be there shooting it people often who work with me are like, you got it already? You got it already? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm used to shooting with Polaroid and stuff.
Yeah. I was going to say, one of the most painful things on a commercial set back in the film days was if they changed the look, everyone waited for the next Polaroid to finish before you get going again. So you're all just like for 60 seconds,
shake it like a Polaroid.
It's painful. Oh my God.
Under the armpit.
Having said the thing about if they can afford to do it, have you felt a shift because you've been doing this a very long time, have you felt a shift through your career as far as...
You keep saying a million years. I've been doing it a really long
80s,
time.
Man, you said the 80s. All right,
that's true.
But have you felt a shift in what those budgets are like, the way the images are even used now? Do you feel the media's changed so much? Being a photographer as a pro, how much has that changed over the years? Oh,
massively. I mean, look, and it shows that I've created and worked on, even shows like Top Photographer that we did with Adorama.
We're going to talk about
they all helped shift what that paradigm is. And I say Top Photographer because we had a photographer on that show that shot with only phones, and he made it onto my show because he had a great eye. He got eliminated in the first episode, but hey, he still made it onto the show. And by the way, he actually had one of the best eyes, and I was almost upset that we eliminated him, but that's the show. But the point being that, things like the fact that back in the day when I started, becoming a photographer, you had to buy your camera, which was expensive, or borrow it. You had to pay for film, which was difficult and expensive. And then you had to print, develop the film, look at the contact. There were so many elements, print the pictures, all of that cost a fortune. So just to get going, it was not an easy thing for someone to start up with. Nowadays,
right,
every Tom, Dick, and Harry has a phone that has a camera on it. Now, does that make them a photographer? No, not exactly, right? But it gives them the opportunity to learn the subject of how to take pictures in a way that has never been available before. So what you now have is over sort of 2.5 billion people, for argument's sake, who have been given a pencil for the first time ever in history. They've been given a camera on the phone. And so now they can dream, they can take pictures, and you've never seen that before. So we're on a fast track in the photography industry of learning new creative, new things that are possible, new ideas, new styles. And yeah, there's a lot of detritus out there and random stuff, but there are some amazing gems as well.
Yeah, but I think it also educates the audience now, so they understand what it takes to take the shot. Now they understand leading lines. They get a sense of what works for their own, because not everyone was shooting all the time. Now they're being raised, literally seeing images in real time, going, I like it when it flares. I like when the sky gets darker instead of being blown out. They start understanding these things earlier, and I think you actually get more of an appreciation for what we produce now because they know what probably went into it a little bit, or have the foresight to see it a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Let's talk about Top Photographer, because I think that's when I met you, actually.
Yeah, probably.
Probably, right? So we had a show here where a lot of photographers got to battle it out for a chance to be on this show. Then they got on the show, had a bunch of challenges. Oh, it was like that other show, but with modeling. And they all got their images judged at the end of every episode. And that was on Adorama TV 15?
Yeah, 2015.
15?
Yeah.
And I just put the playlist in the chat. I pinned it there.
It was a great show. It was really, really fun. And, Adorama, listen out there, all those, everyone out there, check it out. And then text everyone at Adorama or send them a DM and let them know we want to do another season. This show I've had more teachers photography teachers tell me that they have used this show as a teaching tool, because it was a really great way to sort of run through the gamut of action photography, shooting in all different sort of circumstances, and how to actually do it with other expert photographers coming onto the show and talking about their experience with young photographers who were all talented but were on their way to becoming great.
For me, it was the first time you actually saw literally face-to-face competition in photography, as opposed to going for a job, hoping you get the job or something like that. The only other time we ever saw something like this was press photography, when you're next to each other trying to get a shot and get it sold before that guy. But this, you literally watching the 5 or 6 different people taking a different approach to the same exact subject while you're there hawking over their shoulder.
I know.
And it was really interesting just to see their thought process. Also, they all had different, I don't say experience levels, but they all had different time that they've been shooting for.
Yeah, well, like I said, one shot with phones, other one, they all had different cameras that they shot with, so it was different styles, different, there were different ages, there were different types of people, different parts of the world, different things that they liked, different genres that they shot, so you're asking, or say, a wedding photographer to shoot, a fashion shot or an action shot, or you're shooting, asking them to shoot a still life when they shoot action. And so it was all the different things. And that was very interesting to see how they did it. And actually, many of them discovered that they had a passion or an ability or a skill to capture other types and styles of photography that they'd never even tried before.
Right. Yeah. You get pushed into it, and then you got to go do it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And actually it translates. And I think that, for me, is how I've approached what I do. So as a fashion photographer, and this is what I would tell people on the show too, I'm a fashion photographer, but that doesn't stop me from shooting seals on the ice. It doesn't stop me from shooting the odd wedding here and there. It doesn't stop me from, wanting to shoot out of an airplane or out of a helicopter or any aerial photography. Like, you name it, things that are not the sort of traditional of I'm in a photo studio shooting a model. It's like, my model is whatever's in front of me, whoever's in front of me. And my job is to fall in love with that subject at that moment and have that some sort of dance happen, and for that dance to reveal itself on camera, whatever the situation.
Yeah, I think some of the best photographers are the ones that can understand what's in front of their lens sooner than later. Once you start understanding what the purpose of something in front of your lens, where it's coming from, what's important about it, what you want to bring to the rest of the world, because it's not in front of them, you're bringing it to them. That's where you start getting the best photographers. Like when we were talking earlier about the people that worry about the lighting, but then some people just talk. It's the best portrait photographers are the ones forgetting about what's going on and doing this.
Sure.
Because they're going for a different intent, There is a question in the chat from Rosora. Oh, look at this. You've been doing this for a while, they say.
I have. It's been a while.
But have you had a photo shoot idea sitting in the back of your mind that you've never gotten around to doing? What is your process?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's definitely things I'd like to do. And there are things that I'm not so scared to do, but things that you're like, I don't want to, that you're intimidated by perhaps what it takes to do it well, because you know people who do it really well. And that's ultimately that's also the thing that's exciting about it. I mean, the great thing about photography is you don't have to show everyone everything you're doing. You can get in your studio or in your bedroom or against the wall in your apartment or wherever you are out in the street, and you can play.
That's what testing is.
Right. That's exactly what it is. And so you can play with all these things, and you don't have to have all the gear. Right? People are like stuck on, but I don't have that light, or I don't have, that diffuser, or I don't have that modifier, I don't have your expensive camera, or, all these things. It's like, look, guys, that equipment are the tools, right? But you watch people even on social media, carve something incredible using a chainsaw, or you see people, like not the right tool to do it, but somehow they manage to make something incredible with, what you have to do is play and experiment and figure it out. Kind of like I did back in the day using light bulbs and, raw, whatever it was around me.
Yeah.
And I remember doing photo shoots in China, for example. We didn't have hardly any of the gear we needed, and my photo assistants got really creative and got like umbrellas from the garden and put them out and put tinfoil on the inside, and we created umbrellas, and we used bamboo to actually make a V flat, and we did all this stuff. And if you looked at the pictures, you would have no idea we weren't using normal equipment. Regular equipment that you'd paid for, but we had done it all out of paper, and it was like literally like made and faked and pretended and just whatever we just created it.
I mean, you have to kind of look at the tool you're using, and just like you're leaning into your subject, lean into what that tool will deliver and what would be great to deliver with that tool.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we use the pizza box reflector all the time. You guys know that. You know, it's about the end result, and most people aren't going to like, whoa, I don't know if that was a real V flat, right? If they were asking that question, you failed on the photo.
So I was just in a shoot just last week in Aspen. Right. So, you know, I have my own espresso martini.
Are you ever home? What is this?
Yeah, no, I'm never. I'm seven months of the year I'm gone, unfortunately. But I have my own espresso martini business, and I was shooting a job with my espresso martini business in Aspen at Aspen Food and Wine, and we were shooting portraits of people. And one of the things I didn't have, and I was trying to create because there was light everywhere and the sun was coming around, was like I want it to be darker and moodier and sexier, and there was just so much light. And I looked around, and I'm like, wait a second, that tablecloth over there. Pull the tablecloth up, and like that branch, and we gaffed it and got a black tablecloth and just hung it on the side, and it was sort of waving in the wind, and we ended up gaffing it to a tree. I mean, as far as like what looked like a really ghetto setup, but when you look at the pictures, you would have no idea. You know, it did it because it sucked the light away. It gave the great shadow, but from you know, when you look at a professional set, it wasn't what you'd normally see for me, where everything is shiny and perfect and beautiful. So you know, the magic happens when you get creative.
The difference with like actual gear would just be consistency. It'll be what it is every time you pull it out.
Trust me, it's not the way I enjoy working necessarily.
Honestly, I think it's kind of fun because you end up leaning into things you probably wouldn't have thought of because like, oh, this won't do that thing, but actually it'll do this. And it starts making you go a certain way without even realizing it. Kevin's asking any tips on interacting with your subject and getting the most out of them on set.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I think that's probably what I'm known best for, because most of my subjects tend to be newbies or young or not really done it before. Like I've on Top Model, the whole concept was getting people who had never really modeled before and turning them into a model, right? So how do you get them to become comfortable? And as I said earlier, like you don't necessarily need them to be comfortable. You need them to be in the moment and real and own it, right? But that being said, knowledge is power. So if you have a subject, say it could be someone well-known, famous, whatever, learn about them, Google them, learn as much as you can. If you meet someone for the first time on set and you know nothing about them, it's a lot harder and it's easier if you've learned as much as you can about that person, because when you compliment them by knowing their career in advance, they get flattered, and then it's a natural reaction to open up because this person has bothered to do their homework. On top of that, for example, I have a crazy number of playlists on my phone. I think music is a very powerful tool, and I don't just put music on that I like. I ask for the music that they like, and it sets the tone. And any style of music can make it very nostalgic. It can make it very hardcore. It can make you all those types of things. And then things like weather. And when I mean weather, it doesn't have to be the weather itself, but you can create an environment that is cold, right? So all of a sudden the person is shivering, and that's a very easy visceral thing. Or if it's really hot, you start to sweat and your body collapses, and you start to open up, and you act differently. And I've actually been known for getting ice cold water and pouring it over a model's head, because they'll literally be like, oh, because that freezing cold, like jumping into an ice cold water, you go, oh. But it becomes very real, and your eyes light up and they piercing, and all of a sudden you're drawn into the picture. So there are all kinds of tricks, and learning from Avedon and learning from some of these greats, like what did they do? How did they do it? What was the story they create? I don't pretend to have killed a dog. I don't pretend to have done this or that, but there are things that you can do that help, create a scenario where the person has a real story to work with.
Yeah, I think, guys, also don't forget, when you watch those live demos, I know you're like asking the camera settings, watch the nuance stuff, the human part of it, of the way we're talking about so that, how many times I watch at workshops, they don't even bother to ask someone's name. If you just call someone by their name right there, you started a great place.
You know what my number one thing is I say to people?
What's up?
I literally say as I'm shooting them, so what are you thinking about right now? And people are like, it stops them. They're like, I'm not thinking about anything. Or, I'm thinking about when's this going to be over?
Right.
Or I'm thinking about you asking me, what are you thinking about? Right. But the point being is that question gets a thought process in their head. And when you think, your eyes look intelligent, right?
Yeah.
You're no longer the deer in the headlights of like, I'm just posing because I'm pretty. It's like, no, I'm here. You just asked me a question. And it can be as simple as, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
Yeah, everyone says that line. Mark Mann was in here. It's like, you both ate at some point today. Ask them.
Yeah.
Ask them. It'll break. It'll cause some common.
Super easy.
Super easy. Super easy. Actually, the last time I saw Nigel, he was shooting portraits for literally anyone that showed up at this Z100 Jingle Ball.
Right.
And it was a line like you wouldn't believe, but everybody was somebody different. They weren't like dressed to be photographed. They were just like going to a cool event. And the first thing you did was break them. And when I say break them, I mean like, I mean, he just like, no, I think like they were like, what do you want me to do? But before they even got to that point, you were talking to them like feet before they even got to the set. Then they're on the set. They're already shoulders are dropped. You're talking to them before they knew what they were shot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I have another trick, right? So when I'm holding my camera, and it's how I do this with a lot of people who are super nervous, is that, and I shoot a lot of sort of, for example, with Make-A-Wish children who are wish children and what have you, never been in front of a camera, wish to be a model. And I just actually did this the other day when I was shooting, an adult for in Aspen actually, but I held their hand. So I was photographing their face, but I held their hand, and and I looked at them, and I'm like, look, it's just like a dance. And I pulled them, pull, push, and that reaction, they were distracted, and the distraction of the fact that I wasn't just behind a camera meant that they were not like focused on being scared.
There's no division.
Yeah, all of a sudden that wall had been broken.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting. And you don't see it. You don't see the hand being pulled out, but the face is like, what's happening? Like, I'm moving. I'm. It's not what I expected. And then all of a sudden, you can capture a moment that you weren't expecting to get, or you were hoping to get, but you weren't getting.
So what is that like, walking into a Make-A-Wish event to photograph with children? Like, what is that for you? So, I mean, what age range are we talking about? Like, do you talk to them about, like, are you talking to them forever and then you're finally shooting? Like, what is it? What is this?
I mean, it started it's sort of 2003 was when I first granted my first wish. I've done over 40, I think, now at this point. They are the most amazing things to do. These are normally young girls who've had, and sometimes have had a few boys, but mostly young girls who wish to be a model for the day. It's pretty intense, and they, have gone through life-threatening illnesses and normally are on the mend. And the power of a wish is incredibly important. And I say this because photographers out there, if you can do things like this, and there's so many people, you don't have to be famous to do this. There are people that, the majority of people who grant wishes are just people out there who are offering their services. It could be anything. And photographers, people love to have their photograph taken. So get out there and do it. But one of the things that I learned, the very first wish I did was with a girl called Nicole Mueller. She had a leukemia and had a surgery on her arm. Her arm was wizened. A whole side of her body was, looked really sort of poorly and not healthy. And the other side of her body looked perfect, in quotes. And she stood in front of me in this dress, and she had the wizened arm and the awful scar, and she looked at me with these beautiful big blue eyes, and she looked very very timid in front of the camera and stunning. And I sort of took a few shots, and then I said, okay, Nicole, turn around and give me your other side. And she did for a couple of frames, and then she turned back again. I said, no, keep it there for a second. And what I was doing was thinking to myself, I need to be shooting the pretty side. I shouldn't shoot the not so pretty side or the damaged side, because that side is, she's not going to want that picture. And she, at 14 years old, looked me in the eyes, this is in 2003, and said, sorry, Mr. Barker, but if you don't mind, the reason why I'm here and my story is in my arm and what I've suffered and what I've gone through. And I'd like a picture, if possible, of this and me. And in that moment, I was taught a lesson about what the truth behind real beauty was. And it was the courage and the bravery of this little girl who really wanted a story to be told. And it was literally after that moment, I was like, really, it redefined a lot of things for me. And I was on a mission to sort of find the truth behind beauty and the story and the courage. And so that's part of my own story about why I've got so involved with so many organizations, because that, as a storyteller, like the power of an image to change the mood of someone, or the storytelling, is an incredibly powerful thing to be able to do.
No,
So
when the work transcends just being a pretty image to look at,
yeah.
it actually does have an impact, creates something. Like, those images lead to people going, you know what, let me get involved. Let me help out. Let me figure that, or understanding people.
We became lifelong friends. She went on to go to Parsons. She ended up interning and working for me. She's actually in my book, Beauty Equation. And we actually ended up doing a collaboration in her finals at Parsons, where her artwork and my photography were joined together. So sadly, she passed away from a brain tumor after that. But she lived an extraordinary life and was, amazing. So, you've got to put yourself out there too. I mean, as a photographer, you've got to be vulnerable. You got to, this is a job where you are capturing real moments. You are in the moment. You have to feel the moment, in order to see. You can't just hope that you've caught it because you've shot enough pictures. You have to be in that moment.
I don't know, man. I just go on AI and type in stuff now,
Hey.
I don't, I just kind of let the machine do the thing for me,
Yeah, it happens.
How you feeling about that creeping up? With having said all this, like human connection, organic, this and that, how are you feeling about this wave coming from the other side right now?
I mean, there've always been waves. There was waves with digital photography first moving in back in the day, and no one wanted to shoot with it at all. And a lot of the big guys were like, "No, I'm still shooting film," and got very much muscled in. I was always about, "No, this is the change. I'm going to play with it. I'm going to continue to be a part of it." I look at AI. I play with it. I mean, I still think it looks terrible most of the time, so it is what it is. I mean, and again, that's my opinion, right? And I love the process. And I don't think, that there'll be a time where even with AI that it's going to until perhaps it understands imperfection. Because I think what the issue is that most people are on a quest for perfection. With their, with plastic surgery, with an image, with the way they design something, perfection. But the reality is that the beauty, in my opinion, is in the imperfections, and that we are actually a sum of the imperfections, not the perfection. If perfection is boring, if you look at anything that's ideal and perfect, it's sterile because there's nothing unusual about it. If you look at the supermodels, even someone like Christy Turlington, a hugely well-known name, if you now study her face after I've said this, you'll see that one of her eyes is actually slightly higher than the other. Or when we cut her face in half like that and look at one side versus the other, it's slightly shifted. It's not actually perfect. It's not symmetrical. And yet we look at her and consider her to be one of the biggest beauties in the world, which she is, because it's not just about perfection. It's about how you move, how you behave, your presence exactly comes from within. And all of those differences are actually what makes something exciting. It's not the identical exact mirror image that's really exciting. It's all the nuance and the mystery in between, the shadow.
It's like, I don't even look at it like artificial intelligence. It's just trying to give you a combination of things to get you to a median, not extraordinary.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's not living. What you're bringing to the rest of the world from the images you shoot are what happened in front of you. They weren't there for that. You bring it to them. That's how I always looked at this medium. I always looked at it as a documentative tool more than anything else. It's rather than like a filter or like painting. It's like no, something's in front of my lens and you get to be part of it. I think that's why I shoot so close to people, because like how often do you get close to people for that? There are some questions in the chat I want to get to. I know, guys. I know. Real quick, how many people are involved in an average photo shoot for you at the level you're at?
So I love to shoot one-on-one, right? So if you know my work at all, you'll know that I do very, very big, elaborate photo shoots, but I also do very personal private shoots, small shoots. And those, for example, I shoot my wife all the time. I have been known for doing, she has an Instagram called Chin Twins. You'll see thousands of photographs. I've been photographing her and her twin sister for over 34 years. Very unusual to have a subject that you can shoot for 34 years that's actually trained in front of the camera, that's happy for you to do that. And so I've had this amazing kind of sort of set of photographs. Those photographs, it's just the two of them and me. That's it. No one else. In all those photographs that you look at, the two of them and me. Even when we're in studios, in elaborate environments, it's just me and them. That's it,
intimacy,
right?
Yeah.
Total intimacy. That's how I started. But on other shoots I do, I can have as many as 120 people on my set with 8 photo assistants, and we've got 15, 20 packs. We've got all kinds of things going. I want a crane, and there's all kind of shooting from here. We have helicopters, we've got planes going on. I mean, we get there, and when you're known for doing those types of shoots, you get booked for doing those types of shoots. And, the ante keeps getting higher and bigger and bigger. So it becomes often more of a directorial job of having people around me that I'm directing and helping work. I mean, oftentimes I'm not the only camera. There's my camera, someone shooting me, another guy shooting the other side, a videographers, and I'm directing them, and I'm looking at this, I'm cutting that. And so it's distracting. It's not my favorite piece of it, because I still go back to where I started, where I was shooting one-on-one up against the wall, and it's you and them, and you're trying to capture that moment and the magic. And the picture is no more beautiful when it's one-on-one than when it is when I have 500 people in the room, you know?
Yeah, and I think each one feeds the other one. You
Sure.
know what I mean? Like when you're getting that tight to it, well, you can get that tight even if there's a massive thing going on. And you're booked for those giant jobs because once you prove you can do it, you're less of a risk, right? They need something huge done. You've done it before. They're going to you as a professional to, you know, actually deliver. And I think that's what, in my opinion.
No, you're right. I mean, you have to be able to manage a budget too. But I mean, again, I'm not, you know, I'm not a one-man band. So many of the photo shoots that I do and we do, you know, I have teams of people around me, my photo assistants, my wife who's produced all my photos shoots for years, who help make sure that the whole thing runs seamlessly, you know, every piece of it. If the food, the catering, guys, heaven forbid the catering isn't good, because if you lose people because they haven't eaten, you know, there's no easier way than making your crew happy than making sure they're well fed, you know. So don't think of that as like as an afterthought. You know, the catering, that piece of it of making sure everyone's got good food, they're happy, water, satiated, is like a genius move for, you know, making sure you get a seamless shoot happening.
Yeah, I call it itchy crew. Like if there's something that's bothering them, it will domino forward. Like something as dumb as like, are there proper bathrooms, bro? Like you're going to be here for 8 hours today. Are we going to be all right? You know,
Absolutely.
Just got to make sure. Tony's asking, are you doing any workshops anytime soon?
I don't know. Maybe I don't. I haven't have any on the sort of docket just yet. I mean, you know, we have there's Top Photographer. You can see some of my classes on Creative Live.
You did the Sony thing with us a year.
I've done the Sony thing with you. Yeah, I mean, I do them randomly. I've done photo walks. I normally do like 1 or 2 like photo walks and things like that. I did a couple last year. They're kind of sporadic, you know. But I might stay tuned. Look at, you know, stay tuned to my social at Nigel Barker, and we do things all the time. Yeah. So
yeah, maybe I'll get you in here. I don't know. Would you? Would you? We call this like NPR Tiny Desk for photographers.
Yeah. Hey, why not?
I don't know why not.
Seth, hey, you tell me.
Oh, see this guy's puffing out his chest in my space. I don't know, man.
You know, he might be a little scared. You know.
Oh, please.
See, the challenge is on.
Nigel Barker. Anyway, what's the next thing? I know you're working on a book, but like, do you have a project you've always been chasing forever? Is there something that just has been coming together for you?
Look, I mean, I'm known for a lot of things. As I mentioned earlier, I have an espresso martini company that I'm working on now, and we have pre-batch cocktail.
Just won an award.
We just won an award for the best new RTD. It's called the Barker Company. You can kind of get it anywhere, all over New York, all over the country now. But for me, the creative process is what I'm about. So, you know, yes, I'm a photographer, but I've done a lot of things that are creative, you know, so, and that's what really gets me going. And you know, I love obviously shooting, and that's, you know, something that I'm good at. So
I don't think I like sitting idle. I think that's a big thing.
I'm absolutely, I wake up and I bounce out of bed. You know, I do get tired early though. I'm like, I get right up. I'm almost like one of the dogs in the house. I'm like, let me out. You know, I gotta go. And it's like, off we go. And it's like, it's daylight. I'm almost like super excited. And then as soon as the sun goes down, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm like, when's the sun coming back up again? And I'm, oh, it's sunny. You know, here we go. But you know, I've been known to do the odd night shoot too. You know, if the moon is bright, I'm like, wait a second, we got light again, boys. Let's go.
Oh,
you know,
someone's gonna name a golden retriever Nigel Barker now.
Exactly. I was hoping more like, you know, normally and there are a few dogs called Nigel Barker actually, because of my last name Barker.
Oh yeah, I didn't get that.
But unfortunately, if you go on Instagram, the people name their dog Nigel Barker. And I look it up, and it's always some tiny little chihuahua. Tell me what that's about.
Well,
don't tell me what that's about.
Listen, I maybe you should start doing pet photography, but do a whole thing with that.
I've done that.
Yeah, get some animals adopted, maybe.
Hey, so I did a big campaign for ASPCA. The campaign concept was how to get all these pit bulls and what have you adopted, because they were the hardest dogs to get adopted.
Yeah.
But the problem was they get a bad rap, but two, at the time, the ASPCA, majority of the photographs that you looked at, they were in the cage when they were being photographed. The concept that we created, which was not genius, but it actually really worked, was take the dog outside of the cage and photograph them on the other side of the cage. Hello? Yeah. But people had been scared of doing it because, you know, there were people who worked there were just shooting with their phones and things of them in the cage and just saying, look, we have a pit bull. You know, the dog was terrified. But if you spent 5-10 minutes hanging out with the dog, photographed it outside the cage, look, who would buy any body or animal on the other side of bars? They look like criminals,
right?
And
you can visualize it in your life. That's the big thing.
Take them on the other side of the bars, and it's like there it is, a dog with its tongue hanging out, and you're like, oh, how sweet, and that could be my dog. This was the most successful campaign ASPCA had ever run, and all kinds of dogs were adopted everywhere, and photographers all over the country were a part of the campaign.
Nice.
And we went on morning TV shows about it and talked. It was a brilliant campaign. But again, guys, there's so many things that young photographers can do that are outside of what they're perhaps doing, and that with all these organizations and charities, they need your help, they need your brilliance, they need your creativity, and you're going to be working for free, but the payback is so amazing because you get to be creative, you get to do something that makes you feel really proud. And that's a major piece of it.
Yeah, we get a lot of young kids here for classes, and they go like, where do I get started? I'm like, you could start with charities. You could even go to like a local coffee house that needs business and just shoot for them. Now you're not only just building a book, you're building a relationship.
Hello.
and you then go and figure it out. But charities are the same way. Anybody, you can aid people with what you're doing. You're sitting idle does nothing for anyone. Your camera collecting dust does nothing for anyone. Go at it. Go do it.
I'm exactly the same photographer. I work just as hard if you're paying me a full proper day rate, or if you're paying me, or if you pay me nothing.
Yeah.
Right. I'm either in or I'm out.
Right.
And if I'm in, we're going to do whatever it takes to take the best picture possible. And obviously, I work for a lot of startups, people are like, oh, I can't afford you. I'm like, I want to build this relationship. Let's do something. Let's see what this is. I think this is interesting. I like what you're about. I like your ethos. I like your product. I like what you're trying to be, who you're trying to sell, where you're trying to go. Let me help you at the beginning of the journey. If we develop a relationship, then as and when, hopefully you'll compensate me the way it will, and that's the way it'll go, but I'll help you on your way. Likewise, I work for the biggest companies like Sony and Marriott and what have you, and we do jobs where, it's a very different world, but they obviously know what you're capable of, and that you can manage their budgets and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, this podcast is a testament to that. Nigel Barker took on a little company called Adorama as a relationship, and he did a lot of cool things. I hope we still do a bunch of cool things. Top photographers watched constantly. Their views are still growing on it. Every time we go somewhere, people tell us about a class that they use it to teach with. Go check out the playlist I pinned to the bottom below. Also check out all of Nigel's websites and everything. He's got the Espresso Martini, and I'm really looking forward to the next book. I think that's going to be very special. I think it's going to be very cool. So guys, I want to give a huge thank you to Nigel for coming in here today. We've done a lot with him, believe it or not. And it's not just the top photographer. There are playlists of him at New York Fashion Week and doing BTS of actual working in that industry. So do yourself a favor, just type in Adorama Nigel Barker on YouTube. Nigel, I can't thank you enough, man.
Pleasure's mine, man.
I'll see you. By the way, guys, I'm live Tuesday, 5 p.m. here. I'm shooting live. I haven't done it since December. Join me over on the events channel. Bada bing. Look at that QR code. You kids know what that's about. We're going to get out of here. We'll see you later on the events channel with Chad Caruso. But for now, hit subscribe if you're new here. And there are 95 other episodes of this. Can you believe it? Go check out the playlist. Guys, have a great rest of the day. I will see you on the next one. Be good to each other, guys.
Thank you.